Welcome to our episode on Digging Deeper. I want to talk today about many of the concerns that I get approached with by directors and supervisors and even teachers who are frustrated about their work environments, and especially those people who we'll call negative Nancy's or Debbie Downers. Sorry, Nancy's and Debbie's out there. We're talking about people who tend to be perpetual complainers or just drain our energy. And this is why I loved my conversation with Susan MacDonald with her new book, Inspiring Early Childhood Leadership. In our interview, we spent quite a few minutes talking about the flip strategy, and this can be found in chapter 7. And it's what I want to expand on here because I really love that it doesn't require a lot of time and money and can be very effective in helping staff move from those negative conversations and complaints to affirmative questions and a solution focus. So the strategy consists of 3 parts. And that first part is just acknowledging the person's concern. This in and of itself can be very powerful because it tells the person they're being heard. Now, this doesn't mean that we're agreeing with their assessment about the problem, especially if we've heard it, or something similar 10 or more times, but just that we're acknowledging that it was a problem for them. The second part of the strategy starts by asking the person what outcome or resolution they would like. I want you to notice that the question is in the present tense. And this is very important because many of us make the mistake of staying in the problem by asking the person what would they have liked. And then we get typical responses like, well, she should have done this or he needs to do that. And this keeps the focus on the past and the problem. But by us doing a small shift and keeping the statement in the present tense, example, what outcome would you like? Or what resolution would you like? This gets the person to look forward to the solution. Then comes the last part of the strategy, and this is a reaffirmation of the outcome they just shared. We literally restate what they said. And Susan shares that it is this part of the strategy where the conversation turns or flips. And it makes sense because we get caught up so often in what we don't like to do that we don't spend a lot of time in thinking about what we do like. And the flip or the turn gets us pointed in that direction. I also want to add a 4th piece to the process. And this is where the team agreements workbook can be really helpful as a practical follow-up. So for example, many staff just aren't comfortable or don't know how to address or even begin the conversation. So once the person states their resolution and then we restate it for them, we then take out the workbook and we ask them to find the topic or category where the resolution best fits. And once they find that, then we have them look through the consideration section and identify 2 or 3 of the prompt questions that will help get the conversation started. Once they start doing this, often what they realize is maybe that they've already completed an agreement and it might just need some tweaks or changes. Or maybe they didn't do this agreement at all and they need to add it. And the prompt questions, again, will help that conversation. Once they figured out the section and the prompt questions, we want to do one last check-in and ask them what additional support they might need from us. This could look like providing more time for them. Say they want to speak to that person in private, and so we can figure out a way to give them, 5 or 10 minutes where they can have this discussion. Or they could be so nervous or uncomfortable, we can offer to role play, and they can ask us those prompt questions, and we can kind of take the perspective of the other team member. Then here's the last part of the process, and it's the trick that makes the whole thing work. We want to make sure to follow up with that person within the next few days. This can be done in person, it can be done by email, it can be done by text, whatever works for you and your program. But we definitely want it within 3 or 4 days, not 3 or 4 weeks. And the reason we do this is because we want them to understand that we're still thinking about them. And it becomes critical because the concern and us following up with that lets them know that it was important to you and you really want to know what happened with it. Also, We also want them to know that you have total faith in them, that they can resolve their own conflict. So we want to specifically ask them to share their results with us of the conversation. And third, it sets the expectation that if the concern was important enough for them to bring it to you, then it's important enough for them to follow through to resolution. And I can tell you now that depending on the person, this type of conversation might need to happen several more times before the person gets it. You have to remember, we're sharing a new conflict resolution process. And like many of us, they might need a bit of practice. Also, you're changing the way you're doing business and how you address conflicts. And sometimes staff will test your resolve in this area. So stay strong. You've got this. And I thank you for joining me with Digging Deeper.